Hey, what's up? I just wanted to tap in with a quick insight that occurred to me. And this with this video, I'm actually this is the first time I'm gonna be so if you get to be certain people will refer to themselves in the third person, and it's actually somewhat it's just something of a red flag when someone would refer to themselves in the third person, especially in front of you, because they're actually kind of dismissing your judgment and perception of them and speaking for your judgment and perception of them, which is also to mock you in your perception and your perception of them, to refer to someone in the third person. But then I'm going to take that a step further and reference my own content. And I don't know what that means to reference yourself. If that might also be some kind of red flag, or self promotion. But just for the purpose of this video, I had a video a little bit back in the catalog about deja vu and what I think the sensation. I'm gonna put a link to my own video on this same channel about deja vu. Some thoughts I had about deja vu, and it may lend to the type of statement I'm gonna attempt with this. But I actually had a family member that was like talking about deja vu, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then we had to take a ride somewhere, and I was like, can I show you this some ideas I had about deja vu? Like, hell no. A lot of people are like, they're interested in something, but they're not interested in something. Like if someone has something to say, even if someone put up content about something to say, but nobody owes us a damn thing, not even our family, not even what we got to say. But I had a family member, and they were saying that they once had some form of a premonition. There's different words that kind of mean the same thing. So there's like omen, premonition, foreboding, foreshadowing. There's other synonyms of that. They're not coming to mind right now, but I've come across them before, and came across them before. Sometimes it's good to look up a word, even if you know what it means, but you don't use it a lot. It's not like part of your vocabulary, or like it's not part of your normal speech. Just to come across it reading something, it's good to look it up, even though you more so know what it means or what an author intends, because then it sticks better when you have to call it forth, communicating in the future. But there's premonition, foreboding, omen, prescience, um, uh, some would say divination. But then once you exactly use the word divination, that can also be, that's an actual idea or concept, or um, that may be an actual type of premonition that's actually like a skill set or a technique. But there can be a little bit of redundancy as soon as you say divine or divination, which I also wanted to include with this content. But there's different means of expressing that you had a sense, that someone had a sense that something would take place. They had a hunch, an instinct, a knack, a warning, a insight, a promise, a hope. Maybe hope that might be a little bit arbitrary too. So I have some instincts about the word hope when that comes to mind, because both hope and divination, divine, there's a financial component to that. There's a political component to those words, but also that attended by and not different from a profit incentive, and a potential marginalization of other people, but at least there's self-interest that can come into play, and a little bit of manipulation in politics when you say words like hope and divination, because they can both be leveraged to gain support, to gain confidence, to gain compliance, to gain fear, to gain trust. A little bit arbitrary than just a pure, or than a veritable, or then not veritable, but then a genuine, than a congruent, just a premonition or an idea, or a knack that something would happen. I pointed out in this video, in this content, different synchronicities that I've had as recently as yesterday, and then over in the last few weeks and months, and then maybe here and there on the channel I might have pointed those out. That would be, though I've had synchronicities like that, but I've also had forebodings and warnings, and hunches and knacks, um, that you could say would be, you could appreciate that as divination, warning, pre-thought, pre-science, but actually that it actually play out in real situations, sometimes with serious consequences being averted. Or another one like that. This is gonna be this is gonna be bold and daring to say this, but it actually did occur for me. So I was in Southern California in about a couple weeks ago. I was in Southern California, and I won't I don't I don't mean to be I think that bringing law enforcement into real life situations, like for people of color that are marginal people but serious situations, there's a culture about not snitching, but I think that that's not just entirely in order to protect criminals, but it's also to protect civilians from law enforcement, which can be appreciated as professional criminals also. And some of the gaming and dynamics where civilians, marginal civilians, can be pawns and game pieces in a bigger game that's about money. And then so civilians can be discarded and also played and gamed against their own safety, against their own welfare, against their own resources, livelihood, freedom, for the bigger game of law enforcement. And law enforcement is a business. You have to appreciate that. Like a lot of to understand things, you have to appreciate things, especially the financial incentive in anything that occurs. So and is presented to a public. So you ostensibly think that police are certain services, police, military, medicine, education. On the surface, you near about appreciate them as altruistic services. But if you know the members of those organizations and also their policies and mode of operating with firsthand experience, either as a customer, a participant, a victim, a client. And when I say client, I don't mean as in them helping you necessarily. You can appreciate that one is that they can be corrupt, as anything that's human can be corrupt, but also they can just be money making in a racket like anything else. So it's a business. These people in these professions, the profession might be arbitrary, because sometimes when we say things like profession and vocation, we're leaning into the older iterations of what those words came from and came to mean, but that's not what they're existing as currently within inflation, digital reality, what have you. A lot of things are not exactly a profession, but but they are like a racket in a game, in a money making scheme, in a like a lick for a professional one, or I mean in a, like an above board one, such that they don't function the way they present themselves, and they're just whack and corrupt like anything. So people can get mixed up in the teeth of that. But I will say that there's a person that I follow, there's a person that I follow, a creative person that I follow, and they 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 had the actual within 1 or 2 days of them coming forward with something that's like a something creative that they had to offer, but something that is referenced, and something creative they had to offer that they just had uniquely offered within 1 or 2 days, that was like that they came out of nowhere to offer this thing. But what this thing, this thing is somewhat goes with their content, but this thing that they offered, just the image of it, the advertising of it, but the image of it, it was it was salient and it stood out to me. But there was nothing wrong with it in itself, and it's a part of their merchandise. But no more than a day, or that actual same day, the same day that they promoted a line of merchandise, and what that references. One is that I had an experience of what is referenced by that merchandise, and I had actually seen firsthand what the reference of their merchandise looks like in reality. But then that day, that soon then I experienced what I experienced a deeper, or I relived and re-experienced more vividly, more consequentially, although it was consequential in the past. That actual experience of what's referenced in something that something creative that was offered, and that is part of a creative person, what they have to offer. So one is that it stood out to me as something that I had seen in the past was significant, and then it just stood out like that so I knew what something is, but then I actually relived it and re-experienced it the same day as seeing a reference to something that I experienced in the past. And so one is that you could reason, did that subconsciously set me up to subconsciously set myself up to relive something, or did it warn me such that when I re-experienced it, I didn't flinch at it or get taken aback by it. I was somewhat prepared for it, is what I meant to say. So something of prescience, premonition, an actual real omen, and a real something of destiny, a piece of presentation of destiny, presenting someone's destiny to them, whether mentally or actually outright physical in reality, no less than a piece of content, something connected to content, but also artistic, that like artistic rendition that had forethought, curation, detail, editing, presentation, advertisement, with an actual physical material component to present that to someone the same day as the morning of the early morning, to experience that within 24 hours. Was that destiny? Was that warning? Was that prophecy? Maybe all that. Did it create? So there's a scene there's actually a scene about this exact concept and type of thing in the film The Matrix, where the oracle and the person that makes that content, they're profound, a lot of their creativity and their insight. But I think that that's part of what it is to be human, is that we've had these different people among us in the human experience, brothers and sisters, that they speak to what our experience has been, is existing now, and is getting ready, about to be, such as they're warning us, and they're also giving us insight about our environment that we survive with and from. I think that's deeply part of what it is to be human, has always been. In the past, that might have been like around faith, church, education, and different, maybe business too, different things in life. On the savannas, in any wilderness we would find ourselves as a people to the present day, because we're in a new wilderness. Like for some of us American Africans, we're in a new wilderness, relatively speaking, in the human experience, but we're still the same people, and we're still together as we had been. So we still have those among us that speak to what our experience is and somewhat prepare us for our future experience. According to Judge Joe Brown, that'd be like warnings about the game trails, insights about the game trails, tip-offs about the game trails that we survive with. That's a human thing. But I think that some of the dynamics around like I think a lot of that took place in the Black church for long. And in America, I experienced some of that at the very beginning of the 2000s. You had like a remnant of that, and like that was still really a deep thing, and that helped me survive being a young person a lot. But I think that there were dynamics that I've spoken about in other videos, such as potentially the infusion of government subsidies based on the policies of, I think, the Bush administration. I'm not sure which Bush that was, but it might have been the second Bush. But I think that that's part of the Bush administration, to introduce, according to Dr. Umar Johnson, to introduce, and Tashreeq Bey, to introduce a financial incentive in the form of like tax write-off compensation to churches, but also the Black church, in the form of 501c3 nonprofit subsidies to a church. Introduce those finances, infuse those finances, but then somewhat potentially have weight or bearing or gravity on the message, stand, and tenor that a church official and leadership in general, an organization, can take with a congregation, such as to somewhat dilute the real effect and safe zone and incubating of greatness, but also survival for a people that had been the Black church, and then maybe somewhat changed with the introduction of those funding, according to Dr. Umar Johnson and Tashreeq Bey. And now some of my experience, where I was coming into the Black church by choice as a later teen, but then, and I experienced it, the blessings of it, the power of it, the beauty of it, but also some of the detriments that would be in the church. I experienced some. I won't enunciate all of what I perceived in the church and experienced, but some of it was questionable. It could be it could be reasoned questionable things that I experienced and things that I perceived and that I experienced publicly writ large in the church. Some of it was questionable, but it was also right at the helm and occurring exactly at and just antecedent of some of these changes that were underway and had taken place that I later learned about by following the content of Tajik Bey and Dr. Umar Johnson on YouTube. But I had perceived that the church had come from one history. I experienced a lot of that history, the power of that, the remnants of that in church members from those order iterations. But there were things that were questionable that I perceived and experienced, and then first it challenged, first it confounded, then it challenged, then it undermined my own confidence and faith in the Black church, and also experience and success within and without of the Black church from attending the Black church. I experienced a lot of that, but I just want to say that once I had further context, it may not be unique to me in that they say that a lot of male membership fell out of the church exactly in this century, and then some dynamics in society changed with the Black church not having its same pull and effect and function within the Black community, but then in society abroad, as the Black community is very influential and consequential for better and worse. But that's just my take as a person. I'm not being official with that, and I'm not speaking out against or bolstering the Black church currently, because I haven't experienced it currently, so I know nothing of the Black church currently, but some of it at the early 2000s, because I was present and visible and active in and around the Black church in the early 2000s, and I had many blessings from that, many blessings, but also some shortcomings and detriments that might just be life. But I think that you've always had these people, oracles for lack of a better word, or for an exact appropriate word, as you would appreciate that, someone watching that, in and out of the church, in and out of entertainment, in and out of sports, in and out of life. You have some of those remnants of like just leading people culture where we need to go. So you could almost say that from that standpoint, Michael Jordan would have been similar like that, where Michael Jordan did not present himself and associate himself with politics and or religion largely to his credit, and take stances like that, but just his example of overcoming. Because like you watch Michael Jordan, you can't be as racist watching Michael Jordan, because how can you think less of people, human beings, but also just American Africans, seeing who and what Michael Jordan is, and his demeanor and his stance and posture as an athlete on and off the court. Similar with other figures, even the ones that have learned lessons publicly, just as part of being human. For example, like what Tiger Woods did in golf. Just so my grandfather was he had been racist at times in his life, but he grew from that partly with me being born, and he actually saw things differently. Part of that was having a child of color and seeing who I would be, and like my grandfather, he liked my style a little bit, because he was my grandparents, they were impressed with some of my pictures in high school. Like I had a picture in high school where my girlfriend in high school, but I think other people in high school too, they were wanting me to get on for like best smile, this and that, like because I had a yearbook picture like in 10th grade. It kind of stood out in the yearbook like that. It was a good picture of me, but it wasn't. Sometimes you just get a picture that it works well for you. That one was for me in high school, but I also had ideas about style in high school that I'd get on with. So now I have more so ideas about braids, and I rock braids. But in high school, I was about your fades and tapers. But I'd also be at the barbershop and asking for things and curating my hair with my style. I had a great stylist then in high school, a male barber, like a really talented, gifted male barber in high school. And I put him to work, and I got that work with him, and I got work from him, like with romantic opportunities and work opportunities and friendship opportunities, and maybe so different opportunities. But then similar is like with my braids now. But I had something to say about that then and now. And then I also had ideas about dressing then and now that I got traction with then and now, including like some of my yearbook pictures. But my grandfather, who had been racist in his life, he changed by experiencing me as his grandson, but also some of my gifts, as we all have gifts. Like he appreciates some of my music and my style with dressing and hair. But he was also impressed with Tiger Woods, and he wanted me to play golf like Tiger Woods. But Tiger Woods from that standpoint was influential in change culture just by his example as a person of color and succeeding and winning within a sport that didn't have a lot of representation on the high level of success in media as it in the past as what it would be with Tiger Woods. So he showed what American Africans are about and can do. So whether he had controversy afterward, it doesn't change what he did. But still, that these are some of our people that they make a way for us, but they just show it. They show us how it can be done. So they move us as a people. They're some of our leaders. So some people would deride American Africans as following leadership based on entertainers and just entertainers, but in a system that in a financial matrix, a matrix that where oppression and also privilege and the opportunities for living and dying are mitigated by finance, and a lot of finance is mitigated and viable through influence. Influence is mitigated and viable through different forms of excellence, including sports and entertainment. So from that standpoint, you can't say that our sports and entertainers are not consequential and not leaders in as far as changing the narrative and therefore opportunity in a system that comes from and is still within a lot of the elements of racism as a collective economic system, like a good old system. Good old, I don't want to say good old, I don't mean good, but I mean like they say that like the good old boys, like as in old fashioned and accepted from the status quo system of racism is almost like a sophisticated attitude system, an agreement of attitude, and you get an entire people on board with that, and then they hunker down. Racism is almost like a boycotting strategy. Racism itself is a boycotting strategy. That's a financial economic strategy that's very effective and costly and heinous, but also lucrative and powerful and potent. That's a lot of what some people would argue. What is racism? I would say it's a boycotting strategy that amounts to things like gentrification, imperialism, slavery, sharecropping, Jim Crow, indentured servitude, debt, slavery, different forms of stratification in digitalism. But finer than that, it's just actually a boycotting strategy. So, and like a lot, you actually don't have to be or not be anything to boycott other people or to subscribe to and support a boycott. But a lot of it is around your identity. So if you identify with something, with a boycotting strategy, and you participate in a boycotting strategy, whether or not you succeed, but also if you succeed, but not necessarily succeed, but you just participate in a boycotting strategy as it injures other people, maybe yourself also, as it benefits other people, maybe yourself also, if it's based on racial notions, quasi-science,